evening, depending on where you are. My name is Brent Solomon. I have been an instructor here at Four Geeks for almost a year now. Believe it or not, time flies. It really does. Um, yeah, nice, right? I teach a nighttime class. During the day, I actually have a dev job. Um, right now, my dev job is I am a software developer for AWS, specifically Kendra. That has kind of shifted. I guess I can talk about it because the press release has been issued. But um, AWS has a new initiative called Plato. Not Play-Doh, Plato, like the almost like the philosopher. Um, and it is supposed to be the direct competitor to Chat GPT. Um, so yeah, it's going to be the AWS offering for that. So it's really all hands on deck. Kendra was the enterprise machine language search that AWS offered. But that it still exists, but the focus right now is on Plato. So yeah, it's been a shift. It's been quite the journey so far. We just got the news actually last Friday, that the switch was going to happen. And so this week has really been a lot of really cool meetings, really, really cool meetings. Talking about, like the design and, the direction forward and, we're now starting to finally get, our task. There was a bit of ramp up involved. But yeah, we're finally starting to get our task. So it's going to be, it's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work, but, it's actually, really, really cool because I don't know how many of you have used, Chat GPT, but when I kicked the tires on it a while ago, it floored me, about with the capabilities that it has, and to now, be part of, building, something like that is actually really, really cool, and I feel like it's really cutting edge on where the industry's headed because I mean Chat GPT was an absolute game changer you know. Um, it really was, So, yeah, so to be part of that is actually really, really cool. A little bit about myself. I too am a boot camp graduate. So there's just no secret sauce. Um, I once COVID hit, I'm a military. Did 10 years in the Marine Corps. Um, so coming from military, I was, doing some accounting work. Um, yeah, that's not required, Sam, but yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I was doing some accounting work, and always wanted to be, I felt like almost I was being left behind, because, I really wanted to be in the tech space because there's so many cool things happening, and so, decided, after some soul searching, talking with, a lot of people whose opinion, I respect, decided to make this transition. Just, boom, left accounting, and actually attended a coding boot camp. Um, and it's always a hard thing to do. Like you're kind of like, oh, what does my future hold? Because it's that's a huge, huge leap of faith. You know, like to kind of uproot your life and try to pursue something else. That it takes a lot. It really does. Um, but hey, yeah, it worked out. My first dev job was I did some dev work at a company called Curriculum Associates. Loved it there. Great team. Awesome work life balance. Environment. I was working on some really, really cool stuff. But then the Amazon opportunity came along. A recruiter reached out to me, and at that time, I was in the pipeline for a few companies. Um, So um, did Google did a Google interview. Um, didn't go so well. You know that it was tough. It was tough, but like you know, I came out of that knowing what I needed to improve on. Did the Amazon interview. It went really well. Partially because I did, you know, I just fell flat on my face on the Google interview previously. So I was going to make Amazon, a lot better. Kind of got burned out. I had Microsoft next, and but Amazon came with an offer, and rather than going through a Microsoft interview, I just accepted Amazon. I was like, I'm done with this. Amazon was on my list anyway. So yeah, accepted the offer. And I didn't know what team I was going to go to, which is always kind of crazy because when you get accepted to these places, like, they don't tell you immediately, what team you're going to go to. You like, a team has a need, and so, got picked up by the Kendra team. I really didn't know too much about it. It sounded cool, so I'm like, okay, this sounds exciting. Um, and have learned a lot. But like, I'm a testament. Like I said, boot camp graduate. If you, one of the things that I preach to, all my students is, you know, first, I let them know that, coding's hard. If it wasn't, it wouldn't pay well. I mean, because with your knowledge base, you're going to be commanding, a very high six-figure salary. You know, if it was easy, it wouldn't pay well. But like as far as how to make yourself, a really good software engineer, it's like if you ever seen the movie, Space Jam, the original one, it's like the water, the water scene. There's no secret sauce. All it is it really is just you putting in the work to learn your craft you know. So one of the things that I say, every day before we leave class is like I tell them the ABC, and that means always be coding. Like, take every day as an opportunity, to continue to improve yourself, improve upon, your abilities in this field. And and the reason that I love that so much is because, this is one of the few fields where, you're getting paid based off what you know, so why not learn more? Like you constantly be learning. um and so yeah, I take that opportunity, and I definitely encourage you all to do the same. But again, there's no secret sauce. You just got to code. The more you code, the more you learn, the better of a developer you'll be. But attending a coding boot camp is really the true start to a journey where you can be in this rewarding career field. It started with coding boot camp for me, and it's gonna start with a coding boot camp for all of you also. Um, so I can attest it's definitely possible. But again, it doesn't just end, with you going through the coding boot camp. It's you got to continue to put the work in. Whenever you sign up to be a developer, you're signing up to be a lifelong learner. All right. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people here, which is awesome. So it shows me the engagement, that Four Geeks has. Four Geeks has a wonderful program, and I believe in it. You know, so enough about me. That's just like kind of my hey, hello Michelle. A little bit about my journey. You know, and I do like to talk about that. You know, any questions? Before we begin, like, I don't want to ramble too much. I wanted to be like, directed, but like, any questions for me before we actually dive into it? And you don't have to be shy. You can ask me anything. Let's start. Herman's like, dude, I got stuff to do. Let's start coding. All right. Noted, Herman. All right, Roger that. Yeah, we could definitely start coding. Um, all right, yeah, let's start coding. If there weren't any other questions, I guess we can have a little fireside type chat at the end of it if that's something that anyone's interested in. We can save that for the nice QA session at the end. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, like, we can get down to the reason that everyone's here, which is coding. All right, so this workshop is we're going to build a RESTful API using Flask and Python. Python is a great utility language, and I love the fact that 4Geeks teaches Python because Python is one of those languages that you need to have as part of your toolbox, right? You have to have Python as part of your toolbox, right? Of course, JavaScript and the multiple frameworks, associated with JavaScript, very good to have, as part of your toolbox, especially if you're trying to be a full stack developer or, you want to focus on front end, JavaScript, thumbs up, really good to have part of your toolbox. Python, Python is just like a Swiss Army knife type language. There's so many, useful things that you could do in Python. From writing, RESTful APIs to, we use it, a lot for scripting and automation. You know,
Hey,
go ahead.
I did have a question. First, I want to say thank you for your time and showing us. It mean a lot. But I had a question.
Sure.
What do you think about Java and Scala?
Now,
Is it industry is the industry looking for Java and Scala developers?
yeah, and I was actually going to get to that. Java or is maybe C sharp, probably more so Java. Eventually, if you want to open yourself up, for a lot of different positions, you're going to have to learn, a strong type language like Java. So I would definitely recommend, at some point in this career, in your career path, you're going to come across, you're going to have to probably learn Java. Um, especially as a full stack, developer, or if you want to be back end specific, or back end focused, unless you stay at the same job, and that particular job's tech stack, is already locked into place. If a lot of the larger companies use Java for enterprise. So it's definitely a language that I recommend you learn at some point. You know,
It's just a
um,
deep learning curve.
yeah, Java's a tough language, dude. It is. It is. It's a very
I
it's
mean, it's pretty
hands
easy.
down.
Tell you the truth, I think it's more easier than because it make you follow like what you got to do. But I mean, it just take you got to learn core Java, then you got to learn boot, Spring Boot, then it's just a deep learning curve. But
It is.
I've been
It's
programming
it's
in
a lot to
Java.
learn.
I started like 4 Geeks really helped me out so much. They
Hmm.
they really got me like helped me like whoa. So when I did go to Java, it was pretty easy picking it up.
And that's the way it's supposed to be, because
Yeah,
by you attending this coding boot camp, like you learn the fundamentals, and
yeah,
knowing those fundamentals and understanding those concepts makes learning the next language a lot easier,
a lot
because
easier.
yeah, because then you're focused on syntax, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that and that's the key right there. So attending the coding boot camp is, it really puts you truly on the path to success.
Yeah,
um
I recommend a coding boot camp. I be telling people they go to college because I'm in college. I got a degree too. I just finished my AA degree,
hmm
and but first I went to 4 Geeks Academy. Like in
hmm
college, they don't teach you nowhere near what 4 Geeks Academy teach you. Nowhere near.
hmm
So it's like you gotta learn the hard skills what 4 Geeks teach you, and then college just okay. Say okay, I went to school, but they don't teach you down. They teach you like okay how to learn Python, like for loops, and
hmm
that's not gonna get a job. So, but 4 Geeks teach you the college don't teach you the hands-on experience. So now I'm in FAU and university, and they don't teach you like 4 geeks teach you. They don't teach you
And
like
I'm
four
glad
geeks.
you shared that because that is honestly, that's one of the big debates,
Yeah,
about coding boot camps is like,
they
how do we
way
compare
better
it
than
to
college.
college grads?
See, but I don't
Yeah.
understand why recruiters ask for a degree when boot camps teach you more hands-on experience. That's why I be telling them like, y'all want the experience or y'all want or somebody with a degree? Because I know people with master's degrees in I mean software engineering, and they don't know nothing. And you like,
No,
man, you got a
that,
master's
that
degree and you don't know
it's
nothing.
true. Now, we can talk about this a little bit later, but like it's always been a requirement, and it's really hard, for people to focus on, you know, other things. Now,
Yeah,
a lot of the FANG companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, you know, the degree isn't nearly as important as it used to be. Um, so there's not nearly the amount of emphasis on that. If you know how to code, you can, you either know how to code or you don't. So a degree isn't gonna get you past, the rigorous interview process. Like you're not gonna get a coding job by accident. You're gonna have to show that you have the ability to code. So like degree, no degree, a lot of companies, some companies still have a requirement, I won't lie to you, but a lot of companies don't really care about it nearly as much as they used to. Especially with the, the popularity of the coding boot camp, because the coding boot camp, it's, starts a lot of people on their journey. And, like a lot of people that graduate from coding boot camp, turn into really capable, developers, and so companies, they honestly, once you get your first coding job, you just see, the amount of people it takes, make things a reality. And so, they really can't even fill the positions fast enough. Um, so we'll talk about this a little bit later, but like, yeah, Herman, you're spot on, and thank you for sharing that. You know, this
yeah, you
really
right,
is,
bro.
the start of the journey. But yeah, let's talk about that more. Let's have a nice fireside. You know, it doesn't have to be a fireside, but anyone who wants to stay behind, we can chat some more. After we get through this demo. Um, all right. So yeah. Um, a REST API using Flask and Python. We're just having fun with it, tonight. I was thinking, my go tos usually for demos are like either like Pokemon or Star Wars. That's what I do with all the classes. Anyway. I figured I haven't, done Pokemon in a while. And I love Pokemon because like, if you think about like it's really motivating, when you think about like Ash and his journey, because there are definitely parallels, to his journey and like the journey that we're all going through. Like, Ash, he starts off, with a single Pokemon, Pikachu, and he has to learn, the ins and outs of Pikachu, and then he's just, collecting more and more Pokemon and, having to train him and, also train himself, to become, a Pokemaster. So it's all about, achieving a goal, and so, I mean, I really like that parallel because like we're doing the same right now. We're, you know, um, you think about you go to coding boot camp, your Pikachu is like JavaScript. Like you first learn, JavaScript, and then the other languages, you're starting to pick up on and become better with. It's like Ash and him catching Pokemon. But like the thing is, Ash didn't just want to catch all the Pokemon. He wanted to also train and become better with the Pokemon that he has. And so that's what you have to do also. You have to train and become better in the languages that you do know, right? You just don't want to collect a bunch of languages and be, mildly proficient in it. Like, deep dive, like really learn, the ins and outs of those languages. All right. Is that corny? Was that corny, or is that a decent analogy? Kind of corny. Oh, okay. No, it's good. Thank you, Josh. I thought I was like, okay, this is when I was saying it, it was like I was standing outside of myself. I was like, that's kind of corny, dude. All right. Anyway, so yeah, let's get started. So what I plan on doing tonight is, you know, we're just going to use the Flask template that 4Geeks offers, and we're going to do code spaces because they wanted me to use code spaces because that's what everyone's using now. Typically, I do like to work on my local environment. Yeah. Can I turn my audio? Can can you not hear me? I don't know. I can't
I
really
hear you
turn.
perfect. It's
Okay.
probably the speaker. I hear
All right.
you perfect and clear.
All right, yeah, I'll try to talk louder so everyone can hear me. All right,
I mean,
yeah.
you loud. I think you loud as I
All
don't know.
right,
I know on my end you sound real loud.
all right, all right. So, yeah, like I said, hopefully everyone can hear me. I saw one person say, turn the audio up. I talk fast sometimes, and so sometimes my pitch drops a little bit. I'll try not to do that, in this workshop. All right. So yeah, we're just going to go through the normal process of building the back end. We're going to create a model. We're going to then create some routes, and then we're going to test them out using Postman, using code spaces. All right. And does this sound good? Sound like a plan?
Yes, I have a question. Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry that I'm a little bit out of everything, but I just want to know if we need to have our own workspace open as well.
Um, I was just gonna demo. We probably won't have the time,
Okay, no problem. I just want.
to make this interactive coding session. So I was just
Right.
gonna demo and cover some things.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, all right. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, hopefully this demo goes well. Yeah, I did pray to the demo guys. But yeah, if you want to rewatch it, this is gonna be on YouTube. So if you want to code along, afterwards, then yeah, feel free to do that for sure. Um, all right, so I kind of wanted to talk about RESTful, API because I know, some of you are in class right now. I don't know where you are in class. I know some of you are graduated, already, but I did kind of want to, talk about like the RESTful API. So let me actually, kind of share my screen. Just a couple of things that I did want to touch on. Oh, cool! It didn't crash. All right, awesome. All right, so to put it in probably the simplest terms that I can put it in, right? Um, the RESTful API, of course, REST stands for representational state transfer, right? But what does that mean? What is a REST API? Well, what a REST API does, right? You're going to send a request, an HTTP request, to an API endpoint, right? And you're going to be sending this request using a specific HTTP method, right? Now, the most common ones and the ones that we're going to do, which correspond to our CRUD functionality, is get, post, put, and delete, right?
Can I ask
So,
you one last question?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So I be getting confused, right?
Hmm.
A REST API and a SOAP API. Can you explain the difference?
Yeah, soap really isn't used all that often. I've never really come across soap, and from my understanding, I think the language of soap is XML. With
Ah,
RESTful
okay,
API,
okay,
yeah, with
okay.
RESTful APIs, you're going to be I think RESTful APIs can use XML, but the chosen way to send and receive information is usually going to be JSON.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So JSON is, of course, JavaScript object notation. You learned, JavaScript. So we're going to be sending and receiving information, and it's basically going to look like, a JavaScript object with key value pairs. So yeah, we'll get into that like when we actually start sending and receiving things. Um, where was I?
You
Oh
were
yeah,
talking
let's.
about REST, yeah.
All right, yep. So the rest is just architectural style, right? Like, if here's a really good analogy, and let me actually, and this is so. Where is it at? I think I have it in here somewhere. Nope. Right. All right. A really good analogy to kind of help me understand APIs better is the restaurant analogy, right? So imagine you go down, someone named their favorite restaurant. Just a random restaurant, one that you like
Uh,
to go to.
Red Lobster.
Red Lobster, boom, there we go. Bomb cheddar biscuits, right? And they have all you can eat shrimp, right? So imagine that you're going to Red Lobster, right? So you're at a restaurant, Red Lobster. All right. So of course, Red Lobster is they're going to have cooks in the back, in the kitchen, and they're going to have waiters, taking order and serving food. What we don't want to have happen, like imagine the scenario where you go into Red Lobster, right? And whenever you want to go order your food, you're just yelling at the kitchen, right? It's like, yo, let me get a cheeseburger, some fries, a milkshake, and also, let me get I want a Philly cheesesteak and all that stuff. It's like just imagine the chaos. First, because Red Lobster doesn't serve those items, right? But just imagine like the chaos that would happen if everyone went into a restaurant and everyone just started yelling at the kitchen and and making requests. Half of the requests are stuff that they don't have. The other requests are you're not ordering correctly. Like you're trying to order fettuccine alfredo, and they're not quite understanding what you're trying to order because it's not in a way that they understand, right?
So you'll throw a full code right there.
Yeah, you just start throwing out 404s. All right. So there has to be a method to this madness. We don't go into a restaurant and just start yelling at the kitchen, right? We don't go into, just like in programming, we don't just start barking orders at our back end because our back end isn't going to really understand, well, what are you talking about, dude? Right? This is where the API comes into play, right? The waiter is the API, right? The waiter or waitress, what they're going to do is they're going to take your order in a specific way. They're going to take the order in a specific way, and they're going to deliver it to the kitchen, to the cooks, in a way that they can understand it, right? And the reverse is also true, because whenever your order's ready, what a good waiter or waitress is going to do is they're going to look at the order and be like, okay, this is exactly what they ordered. It's in the correct format. That they ordered. Maybe they have an allergy and it's like, yeah, I want the sauce on the side or something like that, right? They're gonna look and be like, okay, this is what they ordered, and now let me deliver it to the client, right? And that's the whole point of an API, right? It brings order to all this madness, to that information that you're requesting, right? Because the API is going to be, is going to be a rule set. It's going to be predictable, right? Because with an API, we're making our requests, which is our order, in a way that the kitchen can understand. The waiter translates it, and then whenever we get a response, we're getting exactly what we ordered, in a nice predictable way. With that predictability, that's how we can code, and that's why REST is so popular, because that we're sending information in a predictable format, we're receiving information in predictable format. That predictability, we can code for that, right? We can code for that, and so any front end any front end, be it React, Angular, Vue, all the other new ones that are coming out. Any front end, it can then ingest our API as long as that particular front end language, supports REST. So this is why REST and the REST architecture is so popular, right? One, go ahead. I think there was a question in there.
Yeah, Brent, I have a question.
Sure.
So I understand that APIs are helpful when you have a client server model, right? Which is most applications we've seen.
Mhm.
Is there any other scenario wherein we use REST APIs?
So expand on that question a bit. Like, so what do you mean by that? Any other, like,
Yeah,
what?
for example, like when I think of application building, I think, okay, there is internet, there is a client, and then there is a server. We either ask for information as a client and a server serves that information, or we are the server and we are, servicing different clients all across the world, right? But like, what if I was building a local application? Like I wasn't putting it on the internet. I was making an application so that I could play a game. I don't see how this REST API could help me, or an API could help me in that situation. Am I understanding things correctly?
No, yeah, you're 100% correct. Like,
Okay.
the RESTful API is meant for the internet. Like, like one of the, part of the architecture is HTTP protocols, right? And so if you're creating something locally, then, REST, isn't going to be, the architecture, that you're going to use. REST, where REST is actually popular is for your web based applications, like whenever you're creating a web app. So yeah, you're 100% right in your
And
line of
see,
thinking.
and I think what she confused too, because
Mhm.
what she got to understand is that with REST, you also accessing, handling databases too, manipulating different data, querying databases. So you could use it with all of it. If I'm not mistaken, right?
So I caught part of that. I heard databases, but say
Like
that
say
again. You
like
cut
if
off.
I had like a MySQL or no or whatever database I'm using,
Uh huh.
that's so a server just handling all the data, right? A s- The server just handling all the data, querying different databases, you know, handling all the user input. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true, but then it's probably a hosted server, right? Like, say I have a database on my computer, right? And
right,
everything's on my computer, then yeah, it makes sense. I don't need a REST API.
Okay. All right.
yeah, but you still need a REST API because a REST API is the server it's just the server, post, get, delete. So you still gonna need it's a REST API. It just just handling all the requests from the user or from anybody that visit your website or whatever whatever kind of technology you building. It just handling different kind of requests. So you still a user REST API just to handle requests. You know, that's all it's doing, just handling requests, handling different like get, put, or delete. You just handling different requests. That's all it's doing.
All right, yeah, let's parking lot this. And so those of you who are familiar with Agile, like we could talk about like the different the pros and cons of REST. Now REST isn't the only architecture style out there to get information, from a server. There's a bunch of ways, that we can get information, from the server to the client. A lot of ways. But like I said, where REST shines is, it already, one of the fundamentals of REST is HTTP protocols. So if you're building a web app, then, maybe REST is a consideration, when it comes to, but I mean, there's a bunch of different architecture styles out there. REST by no means, is the end all be all. But it's easy to use, and it's very handy. Like I said, whenever you're trying to just create your basic web app, which you do in 4 geeks. So, yeah, keep moving on. But yeah, like I said, I really love this discussion. It's really good discussion. All right. Let's talk about HTTP methods, because that's a really, really, really important part of REST. Because the way that we actually access functionality, and it's going to be demonstrated once we actually create our back end, is the way that we actually access the functionality is, yes, we use a URL endpoint, but that's only part of the picture. The other part of the picture is the actual HTTP method that we're using, right? So we can have the same URL endpoint, but based off the HTTP method, obviously we're going to be accessing different functionality, right? So the main HTTP methods that correspond to CRUD functionality, just a review, is and CRUD. Maybe you've heard that term. I don't know where you are in your course, but CRUD is your common functionality. So the C in CRUD means create. So think about it in the context of a database. I'm creating a database entry. Create corresponds to C. The R is read, meaning I want to get information. Or request information, right? U is update, and that corresponds to a put request, right? That means, again, that's when I want to actually update information. Like a really good way to think of the difference between post and put, right? Is, say I am going to, it's probably a bad example, but, say I'm going to, TikTok, and I'm creating a new user account, right? That would be, since I'm creating that, right, and I'm going to be submitting form data to create my user account, that's going to be a post request, right? A put request, a better way to, a good way to think of it is, okay, I have my existing user account, to TikTok or whatever, site. I have my existing user account, but now I want to update my profile information, right? So the information already exists, but I want to make a change to it. I want to update it, right? So that's going to be your put request. And lastly, the D, corresponds to delete, right? So I want to delete just a resource. I want to delete my account. I no longer want it. I'm not going to waste time, watching TikToks anymore. I don't know why I use the TikTok example. I don't watch TikToks personally, but it seems like, all the rage, my kids love it, so that's why I use that example. Probably a bad one. Anyway, but again, CRUD functionality is going to correspond to specific HTTP methods: get, post, put, delete. By no means is this an exhaustive list of all our HTTP methods, but these are the ones that we're going to focus on tonight. All right. All right. And so again, the big part is the
Hey, can I ask you one last question before you start? My
yeah,
last promise.
yeah, sure.
Okay. So, what language do companies seek right now, you think? The big companies, what language you think is most
Oh,
what companies look for?
yeah, big companies are going to have very, very diverse tech stacks,
They got
right?
all of them, right?
Yeah, you're going to touch on a lot, because you know, for example, um, at Kendra, if I'm doing front end work, then I'll touch on TypeScripts. If I'm doing utility work, I'll use React. If I'm doing, but the majority of the work that I do on a day to day basis is actually in Java. Um, so as long as you're learning, you know, pretty much every language that you learn won't be a waste of time. unless you're learning some obscure, outdated language from like the 70s,
Insert COBOL.
yeah. Well, believe it or not, I was going to say COBOL because my uncle was actually a COBOL engineer, and like COBOL was in less of a demand, and so he, kind of, found himself out of a job. But there are companies that I imagine there's still a demand for COBOL
They
engineers.
they still use it over at Netflix for one of their old microservices.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So any language that you learn isn't going to be a waste of time. But the thing is, since you're so new, to software engineering, then you want to learn, the most in demand languages to get the most bang for your buck, if that makes sense,
Which
right?
one is that?
Well, actually, the ones that you're being taught here,
Yeah,
React.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for front ends, React is all the rage right now. If you learn React and understand the concepts of React, it makes it Vue easier to learn. Because if you understand the concept of state, like yeah. I mean, so a front end framework, specifically React because React's the most popular. Python is, like I said, really good language to learn. And then, like I said, you know, I I recommend Java, but you wouldn't really go wrong, learning, C sharp. C sharp is a really good language also. A lot of companies use C sharp. But it really depends on, what you're trying to go into. Like obviously if you're trying to go into, game development, maybe, you don't really want to waste a lot of time, learning, C sharp or Java. Like so it really does kind of depend. But like as far as you really can't go wrong with, what you've learned so far, 4 geeks, JavaScript, Python, and then, maybe adding on, a Java or C sharp. So yeah, and that'll make you really competitive. And when I say learn, I mean like really to be comfortable with those languages. Like not just have like just a superficial knowledge, but like really be comfortable, in those languages. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Uh,
because when you
okay.
program in Java, that'll make you a way better program. If you go, like, say, if you program in 4 geeks, then you start learning Java. When you go back to Python and JavaScript, gonna look so much easier because Java make you go through the steps that you got to go through, and it just open your mind. To me, but I might be wrong. Hey, but that's all. Thank you. That's all I want to ask you.
That's fine. All right. All right. Yeah. So let's actually get into some of the coding. All right. So what I'm actually going to do, and hopefully, again, everyone can see my screen. Is I'm gonna make this full screen, and let me actually make this a little bit bigger. Can everyone see? Like, I can make the text bigger. Um, but like if you were curious, where I'm actually finding, um, this template, like the template that I'm actually going to use, um, is the 4 geeks Flask REST hello template. There's another one out there that also has like um, the front end portion to it. But since all we're doing tonight is creating the back end API, um, you know, and testing it using Postman, then we don't really need to use that template. All right. So if you were like curious, then like the link, to this particular template is is right here. GitHub, 4Geese Academy, and specifically the template is going to be the Flask REST Hello. It's good. It's good to have these templates because they actually save you a bit of time. You're not just spinning up, a server from bare bones. Even though there's nothing wrong with that, it's not hard to do. Like developers like we like to be efficient. So why recreate the wheel? And so I'm not recreating the wheel tonight. So I will be using the Flash REST Hello template. All right. And so here it is. This is the Flash REST Hello template. All right, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open this up in a code space. and I'm gonna let it load, and it'll pop up eventually. I promise. um, at least I hope so. All right. Well, yeah. Um, it would be fitting that it, will take a little bit of time, on demo day. But hey, we work with it. All right. While that's loading, I did want to show you something that I found. All right, because I don't have this planned out too much. I just kind of, we were kind of wing it like jazz. I mean, I have an idea, obviously, but but this is, since we're making, RESTful API, saving the information of Pokemon, then I thought that we would, go to a site where, we can access the information of, the actual Pokemon. So I can't believe Pikachu's now number one. Like, where's Pikachu? Okay, Pikachu's 25. I wouldn't even think that. This is a different list. Maybe it's like alphabetical somewhat. It looks kind of alphabetical. But this is where we're gonna be drawing our information from, right? Like for example, they have really good information in here. Obviously we got the name of the Pokemon, and we can use like height, category, weight. We can throw in an ability, maybe a type, um, it's just something like that. You just kind of keep it simple. We're not going to be doing any like foreign keys or anything like that. That's more of an advanced um, you know workshop. This is more so meant for just your basic run of the mill RESTful API. Like so feel free to chat with me offline. If you want some like follow up with it. But like I said, we're not diving really deep into it. It's just kind of having some fun with it tonight. All right, so yeah, here we are. And one of the things that 4Geeks does is actually really cool is they it comes with this nice little readme here. Like all their templates come with a nice readme, right? So in this readme, right, then it tells you how to start coding. It tells you, and this is actually really important, right? Because when we update our models, right, then we need to pass that information onto our database, right? So we have to make sure that we run these commands here, right? And so there's no guesswork involved. Like we don't have to do a Google search. It's all right here for us. And they even have like a deploy information for Roku. I haven't personally tested that out, so I don't know if it's fully functional, but but I do know there's a lot of really good information in this particular README. It should have ran the initial commands. Let's see. Yep, it did run. Okay, yeah, it did run the initial migrate and upgrade. So let's actually get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll leave the README open so I can refer back to it. But I'm gonna go ahead and open up the 3 files that we're probably gonna be using primarily, which is I'm gonna open up app.py and I'm gonna open up models.py, right? And one of the things that I like to do is whenever I'm dealing with whenever I'm using Flask or Django, then what I like to do is I like to make a separate file for my routes. So I'm going to do new file, and I'm just going to call it, routes.py, right? Because the routes can get a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Probably not long. Yeah, I guess long. The routes take up a lot of code. But the thing is, we can have multiple route files. We have as many route files as we need. It's just a way to like kind of organize it. Everything. So that way we're not pouring, a whole bunch of routes into, app.py. Because that looks, unseemly, right? So we're just gonna have a separate routes file. Any questions so far as like the setup?
Yes. In this case, are you using Flask or Django? I was not sure which one you said.
We're using Flask tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. But see, here's the beautiful thing. By you learning Python and getting comfortable with Python, then yes, it really does make picking up Flask and Django, a lot easier, right? So, those of you who have been through the course and it's like, oh man, we've only learned Flask, but I heard Django is the way to go. Now that you understand the concepts, presented, from the course, and you've learned Flask, it makes learning Django, a lot easier. Django is what I actually used to teach previously, but Flask is still really cool also. All right, so kind of where to begin, and how are we looking on time? It's already 6:56. All right, I promise I won't, take you, hopefully we don't go past 8:30ish or so. I don't want it to take too long tonight. I know all of you have stuff to do. All right, so where I like to begin is I'm going to actually begin working in the actual model. Right, we're going to work in the model, update some things. Then we'll go in the app and make a few changes, and then we'll actually start building out our endpoints and test them out in Postman.
Hey,
right?
excuse me, Brent.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, real quick, just saw in chat. Could you zoom in a little bit, make the code a little bigger?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, everyone. Yeah, let me zoom in. Can everyone see? Like they are there. Well, which one's better? Is that good? Can everyone?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
That's
okay.
fine.
My apologies. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I can't believe I forgot to do that. That's like literally, one of the things I was like, I remember to zoom in. And then it's like, you get down to it and then you forget to zoom in. If there's at any point you can't see anything, right, then just tell me to zoom in. And I'll zoom in. So can everyone see this pretty well?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So, let's start thinking about our model for our Pokemon. I'm gonna leave the user in here. It's actually, it's really cool that this template does come with user, right? Because if you're making like any application that's gonna have like the capabilities of logging in and logging out, and generating a JWT, which you'll do later in the course. And those of you who graduated, I'm sure you've already done that. Like having class user in here is it saves you actually a lot of time. Because now I don't have to create class user. I can just like add and remove things as I see fit, and it's already there. But like tonight we're not going to be worried about class user that much. We're going to be creating our own model for our Pokemon. All right. So I'm going to use keyword class, and I'm just going to call it Pokemon. All right. I don't know. For some reason, my hands are cold. Let me warm them up. All right. So yeah, class Pokemon. Right. And I'm going to reference db.model, if I can spell. All right. And here we are. All right. First thing first, we're going to obviously need a primary key. Right? Because remember, this information, we're creating this model and we're using ORM. And ORM is an object relational mapper, right? So it does all the heavy SQL lifting for us, right? ORMs really are a godsend, right? Because now, we can just code in, just normal Python, right? And the ORM is going to map everything inside of our database, right? So ORMs, really are, a huge time saver and a lifesaver. If you're ever curious though, and you want to see the actual SQL been generated, then you can always look in, looking at your migrations, and you can see a little bit of the, not really, but you can kind of get a better idea of, what's kind of going on. All right, so let's actually go back to models. And let's see. So first thing that we're going to need is, let's just use ID. We're going to use ID as a primary key, right? So, let's just copy it verbatim, from user, for the most part. I'm going to type it out just so like you can, kind of see me type it out. But we're going to create a column in our database, and it is going to be, our primary key is going to be an integer. So let's do db.integer. And let's do primary key. And let's set it equal. This is true, sorry. Set it equal to true. Boom. Here we have our primary key. All right. And so remember, a primary key is just, it's a unique identifier. It's like whenever we put this information to our database, right? The primary key is going to be, the way that we can uniquely identify, that particular record. And in this case, we're just using the integer, and the integer is going to just auto increment, right? So whenever I go and put, my first Pokemon, in the database, it's going to start at 1, and then 2, and then so on and so forth, right? All right. So what other information should we put as part of our model? Just kind of thinking about it. Obviously, we're going to need the actual name, of the Pokemon. That makes sense. We need a way to, call Pikachu. So let's go ahead and put in a name, right? And whenever we're constructing our model, like we really have to kind of think about like what data type is this information going to be, right? And so our primary key, which is ID, is an integer. But what should name be? What do you think name should be?
Go with a string.
A string?
Yeah, let's just make it a string. Exactly. We're gonna make it a string. So we're still gonna do db.column. Right, and instead of doing db.integer here, as our type, right, we're going to do db.string, right? Now we can, put a cap on it, and caps really are good, there's actually a security element involved in that too, like putting a nice cap on things. Because you're kind of protecting yourself against like malicious things like SQL injection, by putting a cap in here. So yeah, let's put a cap in. For the natural names of the Pokemon, they're not too long. I guess we could probably get away with a cap of. What do you say? Like maybe 30 at max? Like, are there any, crazy long Pokemon names? Like,
I just Googled it and it said the longest name is 12 characters, so you could
12,
probably do
12
20.
characters?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's do 20, so that way, like, in the future, if we want to, create a new Pokemon that has like a insanely long name, then we've given ourselves a little wiggle room. All right. So yeah, let's just put in 20, right? So the name isn't going to be unique. So it actually is optional if we put in unique false, because that's like the default. You right? We can put it in though. Like so yeah, we can put in let's put in unique equals false. Just to kind of round it out. Also let's put in another condition where we don't want name to be nullable. Like we don't want to create a database entry of a Pokemon without a name. That's crazy. So let's do nullable. Let's set that equal to false also. All right, cool. All right, so we did name.
Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
Would you please explain why nullable is false?
Because whenever we in a database, you'll come across times where you want information to be optional. Like let's think of maybe a situation. All right, probably a bad example, but like if I'm putting in like an address, right?
Right.
then like maybe in my database I want like a second part of the address, just in case, like, with people who have like really, really long addresses, and, in the second part, they'll put like, the apartment or number, or, some other address information, right? But
Right.
that's not gonna be for everyone, you know. And so, by me making this nullable equals false, I'm saying that you have to put a name in, and this isn't a nullable field. Whereas the second part of an address, if I'm like, have a database that's, storing address information, maybe I would want that to be nullable, because like maybe they don't have a second part to their address. And I came up that, off the top, so maybe that's not the best example, but does it kind of like illustrate the point a little bit? Like,
Right. I think I get it.
yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm gonna
Oh,
need to keep watching and see if I get it. Thank you.
okay, okay, all right. All right. Sorry if that's not the best example. It really is hard, to come up with like really quality examples, of things. But in this particular case, what I'm saying is you must provide me a name. Like it wouldn't make sense for you not to provide me with a name, right? So this is not a nullable field. But again, whenever you're constructing your database, there will be times where it's like, this field should be optional. Like, I don't necessarily want information here, but if you do provide this information, then it needs to meet these requirements. Like, and you'll do that very often. All right. Let's okay, yeah. Get back. Let's click on a Pokemon. So we're gonna want all of this stuff. But I don't want to put too many properties in here, because then that's gonna take a long time. So we'll do height. Let's do height, weight, maybe category, and maybe type. But we'll make it so that way we just choose one type. We won't, again, like, store this information. Like, we would have to get, that's more of an intermediate / advanced, conversation. And let's bypass weaknesses, because we don't want to put too much information. All right, so yeah, let's do a height. And how do they store that? Let's just store this as a string. Because like, we could maybe convert it to like inches, or feet, or something like that. But like, if we couldn't, let's just make this a string, so that way we can denote feet in inches. Just keep it simple. All right. So let's do db dot column. Whoops, and let's do db dot string, and let's do it like 10 characters. Again, unique. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be unique. So let's do false. And we could do nullable equals false here also. We did height. Let's do weight. Actually, I'm just gonna copy it down. A nice little trick. In case you're like curious about it, I could do command option down, and it just I'm on a Mac, so that's option shift down is a way that I can copy the previous line, and I'll show you again. I forget the command if you're on a Windows machine, because I primarily use Macs like for everything now. But if I hold option shift down, then it just copies it just copies the line down for me, and I could do that as many times as I want to, and it really does like kind of save some time. All right. There's a lot of those commands. Well, one of the things that I would recommend is whatever IDE you use, it is worth it to learn that IDE, like to learn like the shortcuts and stuff, right? Because it really does, make your life a lot easier than like selecting, copying, pasting, doing this, doing that. if you have those commands in the back of your mind, then like, when you're really churning out some code, it's really going to aid you, in that. So let's change this to weight. All right. So we have name, height, weight, and let's just do category. That should be enough. Let's do category. Let's do db.column and db.string. Let's just make that 20 characters. I think that should be enough. Unique. Set it equal to false. I can't type today, and nullable. Let's set it equal to false also. Let me rearrange my keyboard here. Cool. All right. Yeah. So, this is good for class Pokemon. One of the things that I like to do is inside of class Pokemon, I do like to add the serialize function. Because what serialize does is whenever you serialize, whenever we reference our model and we reference serialize, then these are the properties that we're going to return, via our response, right? And so whatever we put in serialize, then like I said, whenever, like for user is a better, example because it already has serialize in there. So whenever I return a user, then these are this is the information that I'm going to return for a specific user. Notice that in this particular case, it says do not serialize the password. It is a security breach. And that's 100% correct. Like, so whenever we return the user's information, we're going to just return their ID and their email address, right? And so if there are any other properties that I wanted to add here, then I could, like, maybe it was like address or, something like that. But with Pokemon, there's nothing that I would not need to serialize, right? Because there's nothing, associated with Pokemon that could potentially be a security breach, right? So I'm just going to copy down the serialize function. Whoops. I actually method. My apologies. And there we go. All right, there we go. And let's make sure the tabs, came over correctly. All right. And my serialize, I'm just going to return, and I actually don't need this part. With my serialize, I'm just going to return, an object with all the Pokemon, model properties in there. So I can just, I can do ID, and, I could do self.id, then make sure I put in my comma. I could do name, and then I could do, self.name, and let's do height, and then I could do, self.height. Whoops, I forgot my comma. Let's do weight, and then I could do self.weight, and let's lastly do category, and I could do self.category. All right, and this will actually come into play whenever we're actually, creating our routes, because specifically, whenever we create the route to say like get all Pokemon, right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to be returning the serialized version of every Pokemon, right? So actually, you know what? I could show you I could show you that later. I could take a property away, and then I could show you that it doesn't return because it's not part of your serialized function. And your repr function, I'm not really worried about that. Right now you can choose, to put that in or not. Believe it or not, I'm actually drawing a blank. I forget. Someone remind me what repr does. I know it has to do with like if I wanted to like print out this is what it would, actually print. But I forget the other utilities for it. All right, so we have our class Pokemon. What we then need to do is, since we've created our class Pokemon, right, and we're using SQL Alchemy as our ORM. Now, what we need to do is we need to tell Python to translate this model, to our database, right? And so the way that we do that, and if there's ever any guessing involved, or you're not quite sure, how to do that, then if you go back to the README, it tells you right here. All right, because it says, remember to migrate every time you change your models. And we've made a significant change, to our models. So every time we make a change to our models, we need to run migrate and run upgrade. All right, so let's actually do that. Let's type in pip env, env, let's run migrate. I could just copy it from here. Can you even copy? I guess you can't even copy that. Well, yeah, you can actually. Yeah, never mind. But yeah, I can run, pip env run migrate. I'll let it do its thing. And then, I can then run, pip env, and then instead of run migrate, I'm going to run upgrade. And, I'm going to hit enter. And one of the things that I should know, that I should notice, if I hit refresh here, then it should create a nice fresh migration for me. I can alter this, if I needed to, I could definitely alter this. But everything's in there. I have ID, name, height, weight, category, and more importantly, my primary key constraint is in fact ID. So everything actually looks really good here. So there's really nothing that I actually need to do here.
Brent, quick question.
Sure.
In this case, we are running a Flask server that basically runs a MySQL application, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, like a Flask server can do several other things, but in this case, it's hosting a database.
Yeah. So yeah, what all we're doing here is, we're going to have our SQL database, and we're just going to, have that CRUD functionality. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we could do a host of other things. We're just really keeping it simple tonight.
Understood. And so this server will essentially be the server that houses our database and the application that talks to the front end, right?
Yeah. So eventually, yeah. Of course, we're not creating the front end tonight because due to the time constraints. But yeah, ultimately, yeah, this is what it will do.
Perfect. Okay, so if I wanted to use some other database, like maybe I wanted to use MongoDB, so I would just use the correct code here and start a MongoDB database in the server, right?
Yeah. So, and that's actually a really good question. So, a couple of things would have to change. First of all, you have to change a couple of things. So you can still obviously use Flask, right? But like if you wanted to use like Mongo, right, then your ORM would have to change. Like you wouldn't want to use SQL Alchemy because SQL Alchemy is for your SQL databases.
Right.
But so you will want to use an ORM that corresponds to Mongo. And I actually forget, like I haven't used Mongo in a bit of time, so I forget the really good ORMs for Mongo. Secondly, if we look at app, then whenever we are actually connected to our database, like whenever you do the cloud version of Mongo, it's actually going to give you a string, connection string, to that particular Mongo database. And so you're going to want to obviously use it. You're going to want to connect to that, instead of connecting to this is for SQL. So yeah, so I mean, it still is going to function the same way, but like I said, a couple of key things will change. Yeah.
And
But
like
with Flask,
I
we can connect to any database that we want to. We can obviously use our SQL databases, but it can easily work with a NoSQL type database like Mongo or Fire,
hmm,
Google's Fire. Is it Firebase or Firestore? I forget. But one of those.
right, yeah. And this would apply, like my understanding is right now our server is running a Postgres DB, right?
Well,
But yeah.
yeah. Uh huh. Keep going.
But imagine I want to put stuff into a hosted database like an Airtable. In that scenario, I'll just have to connect to that hosted database, or like you said, FireDB, right?
Correct. Hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, like, and that brings up a really good point. Like nothing's, you're not limited, to only using, Postgres. Like, I mean, we can, Flask, has capabilities of working with, pretty much any of our database needs, so, which is actually a really, really good point. Because, sometimes you're not going to need a relational database.
Mhm.
Like document databases are really good at what they do and they're really easy to use. So if I don't need, if I'm not going to be, saving data that's going to have like complex relationships, then like, maybe it is worth using, a NoSQL database, like, especially if I'm doing like, a variety of things like, just, getting scientific data, because,
Hey,
yeah, go ahead.
Professor, that's another thing I wanted to say too. Had one my last question, I promise you.
No, it doesn't have to be your last question. Go ahead.
So like the company, so they using Git Docker. What should we what should we know the most? Because late I started off using Git, but lately I've been working with Docker because I thought that's what companies be using.
Oh yeah, companies use both. Yeah, you're gonna need to know Git and as far as like yeah, Docker containers are really cool because like it standardizes the environment for everyone. So there's no guessing. I'm using this configuration, and so is everyone else. So like you'll need to know you'll need to know both. Um,
I've seen them
you,
on all, man. You got
yeah.
Azure, Snowflake, GCP,
Mhm.
AWS container. Like they on all of them. It just depends.
It really does just depend on the company. But yeah, you'll use it all. There in this field, there's really nothing bad or non-useful you can learn. Even going back to like the COBOL, example. Now, COBOL
Hey,
would
and
be
can
my
I
first choice, but like there's nothing bad that you can learn here.
and can I tell
Uh,
everybody one thing? Like,
right.
don't be scared. Don't think it's a certain way you got to program. Take chances. Like the major companies, the inventors, that's what they did. They took chances on. They wasn't no master programmer, so don't think it's a specific way. Whatever in your mind is so easy to do. It just sometimes it seems overwhelming at first, but
Hmm.
you know, just program and it ain't no certain way. Just take a chance and just program. It ain't no right. Make mistakes and at first it seems overwhelming, but after it ain't gonna be overwhelming. It's gonna be pretty easy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's so many cool technologies out there, and like every company is going to have their own cloud offering of this and cloud offering of that. But like but that's a cool thing. Once you learn Mongo, then you come across any NoSQL database for the most part. You understand like, conceptually what's happening. You know, but again, there's solutions for every problem. Right, a lot of technologies out there. So yeah, like I said, it's all worth learning and experimenting with. Um, all right, yeah. We're okay. Yeah, the models. I think we're done. Um, yeah, I think we're done. With the models. So let's go into app because we actually need to make some changes to app. The first thing that I need to do is from models, yeah, I want to import DB. I want to import user. I can leave that there, but like I also want to import Pokemon, right? Because we need to we're going to reference. What? Actually, I don't really need Pokemon here. I'll take that back. What we do need here is we haven't done routes yet, so let's not. Actually, we can go ahead. Let's switch over because I will need to import routes. So yeah, let's actually set up routes. I think that might be the better thing to do. Then whenever we set up routes, then we'll import it into app. We'll do our app dot config and add in the blueprint and all that good stuff. All right. So routes. So again, what this file is going to contain is going to be our URL endpoints. All right. So in order to make this work, there are going to be several imports that I need to use. It's pretty much going to mimic, a lot of the imports you see here. So the first import that I'm going to need is I'm obviously going to need Flask, right? So from Flask, I'm going to import some of the stuff that I'm going to need. First, I'm going to need Flask. Then I'm going to need we're going to need request. And again, I think this is actually here. Yeah, it's actually right here. I could literally just copy this, but we'll type it out. We'll do Flask. We'll do request. We're going to need obviously JSONify. And let's do URL 4. And what else? I think URL 4 was select, and we'll need one more, because we'll need blueprint. All right, and now we're going to actually need to import our models into routes because we'll be referencing those models. Actually, we really only need one. So for models, let's import Pokemon, and so there we go there. What else? I think that might be good for actually in utils. There was something really handy, which is that the API exception, because we will generate some API exceptions if some things aren't found potentially. So yeah, let's do from utils. Let's import. Let's import API exception. All right. And that should be good. So what I'm actually going to do is, since this is going to be an API, since this is an API, right, everything in this path will be preceded with /API, right? And that's kind of the way that I want it, because I want that distinction. Now I can choose any qualifier that I want, but I'm actually going to use, API here. So let me go ahead and create my blueprint. So let's do blueprint, and we need to refer to API, and let's do name. What happened there? I don't even know how that happened. Wow, that was kind of weird. All right, so now we have kind of the basis for our routes. We'll come back to this. But let's now go to app, because there's actually a couple of things that we need to do to app in order to get this party started. Specifically, we need to import routes, right? So let's do from routes. Let's import API, not API exception, but API, right? So all of this stuff in routes. This is blueprint. It's called API. We're going to import all of our routes into app. All right. And the reason that we're importing all of our routes into app is because now down here, we can actually do, I think we can put it right here, right? Let's give ourselves some space. We actually need to add in, we actually need to add in, our API. So we'll refer to our app, right? Because this is what the name of our application. So let's do app, right? And then we can do dot, and we will need to. And am I missing? I don't think so. Nope. I don't think I'm missing anything. Where? Okay, yeah. We could do app. Let's go ahead and register. Let's register our blueprint. So let's do our, and again, what we're doing is we're giving ourselves the ability to bring in all of these URL endpoints. All right. So let's go app.register, if I can remember, registr underscore blueprint, right? And then to register, actually forget. Let me see something real quick. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. All right, we're going to register our blueprint. Everything in here is going to be referred to as /API, right? So we need to put that in. So the blueprint that we're registering is going to, of course, be our API, if I can spell correctly. And the URL prefix, let's set that equal to /API. All right, so I know we did a lot there, right? But basically, what's happening is all of our routes are going to be in this blueprint that we call API, right? In order to bring in all of those routes, we need to register that blueprint. We need to bring in API, and we're going to say, hey, note that all of the routes here, right, the URL prefix to access these specific URL endpoints, all of these URL endpoints will be preceded with /API. We can make this anything that we wanted. We can make this anything, right? We could do, put peanut butter and banana sandwich here, if we wanted to. It doesn't quite make sense, but I mean, you kind of get the point, right? So whenever we're accessing any of these routes, right, these URL endpoints in this specific file, they're all going to be preceded with /API. All right. So if we create a route that says like, I don't know, like, I don't know, like we create like a Pokemon route, then it would be like /API/Pokemon, so something like that, Honestly, that's really all we need to do with app, because like that's the beauty of that really is the beauty of using a template, because it's all done for us for the most part. So whenever we go and we add stuff in, we really, all we need to do is update our model. And like I said, I like to create the different routes folder, because we're going to have a lot of different routes for our CRUD functionality. But I mean, honestly, if I wanted to, I could stick them right in here. Like the blueprint, I mean, this file even shows you, like I can stick them right here. Now, probably not the best thing to do. But the thing is, like, if you're getting spun up real quick, then, you could do that, test out your endpoints, and then, later on, decide if you want to move them. There's nothing wrong with that. This is development. Like, this isn't, final production. Part of development is, just getting it working. And then kind of refining it later. Like that's a really good mantra, whenever it comes to coding, is like your first and foremost, objective should be get it working, right? And once it's working, then, then and only then, should you focus on making it better, but the key is to get it working first. All right. So let's go back to routes. Let's create a dummy route, because we've done a lot of work, and I just want to see if before I go any further, I want to see if there's like a mistake anywhere in my code. And so what I like to do is I like to create just a really quick dummy route. All right. And maybe you'll see it in like the templates. I think they create like a hello route. I think I actually have one here. I can copy that. Do they have it? Maybe it's in like one of the other templates. Let's see. Yeah, let's just create this. So in order for me to actually create my route, then I actually need to put in a qualifier. So I'm going to say add API, right? And I'm going to let Python know that, Flask know that what I'm creating is a route, right? And now I have to put in some route information, right? Specifically, I need to put in the URL endpoint. Like, what is this URL endpoint? How can we refer to this specific route, right? And I'm going to just do like /test, right? And I'll eventually delete it, but I'll do /test, right? And the method that we're going to be using to access /test, right? And I'm just going to actually do get. And whoops, let me there we go. Whoops. So let's use single quotes. All right. And that looks, yeah, so test methods, get, and so now what we can do is let's create our function, and let's just call this like test API. All right, and it's not gonna take in any parameters, and so all I'm gonna do is, let's just let's just return something. Let's just return, I don't know. JSONify. Let's just say, your API works. Congrats. And we'll return that, and then we can also return like a nice 200 response. All right. Again, I'm just doing this because this is like a sanity check. I just want to make sure before I proceed any further, coding out all these, the CRUD functionality, for Pokemon. I just want to make sure that this is actually working. All right. So I'm going to open up a new terminal. So I have two, and this server is not yet running, so I need to actually run it. And so if you're curious about how, to run the server, if we open up the pip file and we go to scripts, right, then the way I can actually run this is I can refer to one of these scripts. And so you can actually see what it does. And so in this particular case, I want the start portion of it. So I could just run, I could just do pip env, and I could just do run start. And that actually should spin up my server. All right, now my server is actually spun up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look in ports, and I'm going to test it out. So I already know if I go back to my terminal, right, then my development server is running on port 3000. Since I'm using code spaces, then I need to use the local address that's running on port 3000, right? So if I copy that, and this is the way to copy it. If I copy that, then and go to let me actually minimize this and open up trusty old Postman. Postman is there are other ways to test URL endpoints. I like Postman. I learned on Postman. I feel comfortable using Postman. There are others out there, but Postman is tried and true. It's always good to me. So I would never, I like to use Postman. So if you haven't used it, you just click the little plus up here. It allows you to make a new request. The nature of our request, as you can see, you click here to change the request type. We are making a GET request, right? Here is where I enter my URL, right? Now, the URL endpoint that I'm trying to access, if we go back, remember it's /API. So the way that I access this functionality right here is I send a GET request to this endpoint, so it's /API/test, right? And then it's going to run this functionality, right? And so let's do that. So let's do /API/test. And what I should get is I should get, something that returns that says your API works, congrats. Right? So let's hit send. Oh, yeah, duh. Code spaces is weird. If I keep this private, what it actually does is it's telling me to log in to GitHub, right? And so in code spaces, if you want to use Postman to test out your endpoints, then like you can just right click here on port 3000. You right click on like where's visibility, and you just go to port visibility and change it to public. It'll refresh, and now I should as long as my server's running, I should be able to now use Postman, to test out my endpoints. One thing to note, if you stop your server for any reason, maybe you're done coding for the day, whenever you go and you do your pip and env run start again, you will have to do this again. It's not going to automatically save this as public. All right. So now, when I hit send, now we know that we get our appropriate response back. But again, the important part is, how am I accessing this functionality? Well, that's the beauty of REST, right? This is GET is an HTTP method. I'm sending my request with a specific HTTP method using a URL endpoint to access functionality on the server. That is the nature, that is the beauty of REST, right? Because it knows exactly what to do, right? Since this endpoint is /test, so /API/test, whenever I send the GET method, right, then it's going to say, it's going to know exactly what to do with this functionality. Now, if I copy this route, right, and I change my method to post, and let's change the response. This is a post response, right? So if I change it to post and hit send, whoops, actually made a change. Oh, this is going to be annoying because I'm going to have to, let's see, do I have to restart my server? Yeah, I do. Yeah, let's control C it, and let's rerun our server. All right, nope, /test, methods, post. Oh, okay, let's just call this like, post test. Sorry. All right, and now let's rerun our server. All right, there we go. All right, now we hit, sorry, gotta make it public again. All right, let's let that refresh. I don't want to open in the browser. All right, now we're tracking. I hit any errors? No. Okay, server's running. Let's say service unavailable. 72 did the. Okay, maybe this changed. So there's API/test. Hit send. There we go. All right. But like that kind of threw me off for a second. I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, that's the beauty of REST. I can have the same URL endpoint /test and /test, right? But depending on the method that I'm sending in, right, that directly accesses the functionality, corresponding to that particular request and that API endpoint. And so I think that's actually a really cool part, of REST because, get endpoint, boom, your API works, congratulations. I changed that, only changing the HTTP method, right? Then it knows, to access this specific functionality, right? And like I said, I really do think that's cool. I think that's a really cool feature of, the RESTful API. All right, so we're going to leave these endpoints in here, but let's create some real endpoints. The ones that actually correspond to Pokemon. Because now we've done our sanity check. We know that both work. So we're good to go there. So our server, is working. We're getting, the appropriate responses, right? So yeah, let's where I like to actually start first is whenever I'm creating, my backend. Whenever I'm creating my endpoints, with corresponding to CRUD functionality, right? I don't like to start off with get because I don't have anything to get yet, right? There's nothing, I have nothing in the database right now, so what would I be getting, besides like, something, empty objects, so where I actually like to start is post, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do /API route, right? And I'm going to just call this like, let's just do, /Pokemon. Keep it simple, right? POKEMON, right? And the methods, let's make this a post, right? And let's create our method and let's call it, let's call it like, I don't know, let's call it like add Pokemon. Good enough, right? Let's call it add Pokemon, right? And so what we're going to actually do with add Pokemon is we're going to, again, we're going to be accessing our database and we're going to be, using the information that we send in to add a Pokemon. All right. So this is where I have to do a little bit of maybe explanation, right? Where are we getting the information from that we will use to add, we'll take that information and use it to add a Pokemon? Well, the place that we're actually getting this information from is from the body of our request, right? Because whenever you make a request, you send in a bunch of information, more information than you probably realize, right? Even more information if you're making a request or restricted route, right? But the place that we actually get the information, that we'll use to, create a new entry, a new entry in our database for Pokemon, we're going to get it from the request that we send in, specifically the information that we supply in the body of our request, the body portion of our request, right? All right. So since this is a post route, we know that a request is going to be sent in, right? And we know that we want to extract information from that request. So the thing is, I need to create a variable that's going to hold that information. And then I need to use that to create my Pokemon object. I need to commit it, I need to add it to my database, and then I need to save it, and, then I need to return something. That's basically like the workflow here, right? So let's do, let's create a variable. Let's call it like request. Let's do like request body, right? All right. So the request that gets sent in here, what we're going to do is we're going to get it in JSON. So let's do request, right? And we'll say like, let's do get JSON. So let's get that information. And let's save it to this variable request body. You know what? For the sake of time, let's just call it RB. Is everyone cool with that? Because request body, that's a lot to type. So let's do RB. Let's call it RB. And RB is going to refer to the request body. Now we're not talking about the response yet. We're talking about the request itself. Request is with a post request. Typically, this is going to be, your normal workflow is you're going to be getting information off a form. You're going to compile it, and on the front end, whenever you make your Axios or fetch call, right? You're going to be sending that information in, to this, URL endpoint. All right.
Brent,
So
you said Axios. What exactly is Axios?
Axios is a much better version of fetch. Now,
I
fetch
see.
is whenever you use React, fetch is built in, and so like a lot of people use fetch, but fetch you have to do a lot of extra steps. Like you have to like JSONify everything, which could become a pain in the butt. With Axios, Axios is a third party package. If you go to npm, actually I can show you real quick. Let me see. Where's my browser? I thought I had it open. Oh, duh. For some reason, I thought I was like, okay, brain fart. Sorry. npmjs.com. Those of you who are unfamiliar, with React and amongst other front end frameworks, npm is Node Package Manager. This is the single largest third party library in existence. There's everything in here. It's insane, and there's so many great third party packages in here from so many dedicated and committed developers. Like they're not getting paid for this. This is open source, but this is one of the things that you'll find in this community is there are a lot of passion projects. A lot of developers are really passionate, about what they do. And so they create some really awesome, third-party functionality that you can bring into your, application and, and use and utilize. There's packages for everything. The one that I was referring to is one called Axios. And so it's basically a fetch alternative, right? And as you can see, look at the popularity of it. Every week, this is weekly downloads, 45 million weekly downloads, right? And you can see, this page tells you a lot of really good information. One, you can see the popularity of it. 45 million people are using it, are downloading it weekly. It's probably quality, and you can see like the last published was 8 days ago. And so they're making updates to it, pretty regularly. 8 days is like no time, right? It gives me the GitHub repository. There's actually a homepage for Axios too, that I can click on to go, find out more information. But again, it's all open source. So I could fork this directory and, start playing around with it. And, I can look under the hood. I don't have to just guess what's happening under the hood. I can look I know exactly what's, happening under the hood. So if I run into something that could potentially be a bug or a bug that I found, why not fork the repo and submit a PR, and let the developers know, hey, I'm fixing this, particular bug. That's the way this community should work. And it was the way this community does work, it's, everyone could, contributes, and you'll get to the point where you can, and once you get to that point, you should, because, that's the beautiful thing, about this community is all the open source things that are available. There's none, secretive. It's open source. The code's right here, and it's like I said, it's available for me to use. But npmjs, .com. I can search packages. I can search for like anything. One of the things is, believe it or not, React Router. If you remember learning that, that's a third party package. I taught that actually yesterday. To the class. Like all that great functionality that you get, to mimic a multi-page application, that's free and open source, and you just have to install it, and then it's ready for you to use it. So it's worth checking this out. Especially if you're working on like your capstone or another project. Why recreate the wheel? If that functionality is already out there for you, then and if it's good, then use it. That's what it's there for. So yeah, that's just kind of an aside. So and that's what Axios is. I prefer Axios, and everywhere that I've experienced is used like a node, backend. This user React, has used Axios. Like I think I've yet to see. I didn't mean to say node backend, but user React, on the front end. I've yet to see people use fetch, just because there's like fetches are bad. It's just there's a lot of extra steps involved, so people tend to prefer to use Axios. It's like a more souped up, easier to use version to make your your API calls on the front end.
Yeah, understood. Thank you. I've seen it in a few examples, so that really helps. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And my explanations get lengthy, so like I'll try to shorten it. All right. Yeah. So let's go back. So yeah, from our request body, we're extracting the information from our request body, right? And so what do we need to do? Well, since we're extracting the information from our request body, then the information that should be in our request body, right? We don't need ID, because it's going to be, that doesn't need to be part of the request body. That's our primary key, and it's going to auto increment. But these parts do need to be part of our request body. And so in order for me to create a Pokemon, then I'm going to need to supply name, height, weight, and category inside of my request. I have to, right? So let's do that. Let's map, right? So let's create a variable. Let's call it Pokemon, right? And we're going to reference our model here, right? So which is a Pokemon, the capital P Pokemon, which again references this model right here, right? And so now let's like map the properties, right? Right. So from our request body, we're gonna extract name, and we're gonna set it equal to the name portion, that requirement. We're gonna reference. Remember, because all this information, this is an object here, right? This is JSON, right? We're getting a JSON information from our requests. And inside this JSON information is going to be everything that we need to create a Pokemon, right? And so the way that we do it is we're going to reference our request body, right? And, let's reference name, right? Because the Pokemon, again, name, where we're going to get that value from, request body, it's going to be request body, that object, request body.name, or, we use square brackets, all right? So we need to do name, height, weight, category. All right, height, weight, category. Let me remember that. Height, all right, so same thing is going to apply. Whoops, we're going to do request body, and let's do height. Let's do weight. Let's reference request body, and let's do weight, and category. All right, and let's do request body and category. Boom. We have now created our Pokemon. All right, we have now created our Pokemon, and we reference our model, and so there's a 1-for-1 there, right? So now we've created our Pokemon, and we map it to our Pokemon, our Pokemon model. And so now whenever we go, to apply this to the database, it knows exactly what we're trying to do. It knows exactly what values go where, what columns, right? So we need to reference our DB session, right? So this DB session that we created in an app, actually we created it here. I'm sorry. We're referencing SQL Alchemy, so let's reference that. Did we import it? I don't know if we imported it. But yeah, we actually do need to import DB because we're going to need to refer to it. Yeah, I almost forgot that. That would have been cool. So let's do DB dots. Let's do DB dot session, right? And then what we want to do is it's right there for us. Let's do add. And so what we want to add is that Pokemon, that we just created. Now, we don't do capital P Pokemon because we're not adding capital P Pokemon refers to the actual model, right? This is us in lowercase p Pokemon. This is us referencing our model, extracting the information from our request body, right, and then giving each of these attributes a value, right? So this is what we want to reference. We want to reference this variable Pokemon that contains actual constructed Pokemon. All right, so db.session add Pokemon, right? And then let's do db.session, and we need to commit. And finally, we can do our return. So let's just return something. What do we want to return? Well, we can simply return a message if we want, that's what we could do, right? And let's just simply return a message, right? So I'm going to use in Python, I'm going to use the F string, and the reason I'm going to use the F string is because I'm going to put in the name of the Pokemon, so we know exactly what Pokemon we actually added. So let's do Pokemon, and let's reference whoops. Okay, that stuff popping up kind of threw me off. Let's reference RB and name, right? Was sorry. I'm using double quotes here, so it doesn't want me to use double quotes here. So just kind of a FYI. Was added to our database, right? Let's get rid of that, and also let's send a 200 response. All right. I want to test it out because I like to test endpoints as I add them, right? And this is, let me minimize that. Postman. There we go. Okay, let me get a scroll order. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and create it. So post order. So /API, and this endpoint is going to be /Pokemon. All right, so let's see, /Pokemon, right? And in order for me to test out this URL endpoint, then remember, the important part is from the request body, I need to be sending that information in, right? So I better make sure I do that when I'm testing out my URL endpoint. So in Postman, what I do is I click on body, I click on raw, and I change text to JSON because it's a RESTful API, and I'll be using JSON. And I then need to create my the JSON that I'm sending in, right? And so I'm going to do name, and you know what? We could do star me. Star me's cute. Let's do name. Let's do star me. What were the other? Height, weight, category. All right, so let's go back. Let's do height. And I'm just going to put a comma here, and I'll fill in the values later. Let's do weight. And let's do category. Whoops, no comma needed there. All right, so let's put in Starmy's information. Height, let's put in 3 feet 7 inches. If it lets me copy this, it really doesn't want me to copy this. Why is it selecting it all? Okay, if I'm careful. All right. So for height, let's put in 3 feet 7. Can I actually do it like that? And can I do that? Yeah, there we go. 3 feet 7 inches. Someone look. What are the escape characters in JSON? Someone look it up for me real quick.
Escape. Okay.
Yeah, I can. Well, you know what? I can. Yeah, I can not be lazy. All right.
Now we got you. Escape characters, JSON.
Okay, it says place a backslash before the special character. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
did that right.
Oh, because we're doing inches.